Today I want to take you on a run-through of Descent: Journeys in the Dark version 2.0. I'm in the middle of playing the original quest for Descent 2.0, the Shadow Rune, and we've played through to the Interlude. I have several of these quests written up on playthrough board games. It's worth going back through and reading them. I will probably put up the remaining two quests that I haven't put up yet at some point, but I wanted to jump right into the videos because that seems to attract more people and allows for more interactivity. But I don't want to go back to play those quests through in video form because the characters are already built. Let's go with what we have. What we have set up here is the second Interlude quest. There are two possible Interlude quests in the original campaign book. The Shadow Vault is the first one. If the heroes win two of the main quests during their playthrough, they get to play the Shadow Vault. If the Overlord wins two of the main quests, they get to play the Overlord Revealed. And that's what we have built here on the black card table. I wanted to begin by picking monsters. And I struggle with the best way to pick monsters, but one thing that I thought would be fun to do is to use some resources that are online. These are on Board Game Geek on the Files section of Descent 2.0, and this is the Open Group Monster Randomizer. And what I can tell you about the Open Group Monster Randomizer is that Red Jack's system uses this to select monsters for an Overlord that is being played as an automated Overlord. We're still not going to do that in our playthrough. We'll have me playing the Overlord and me with my children playing the heroes. But I wanted to use this particular system to select monsters for us to fight against. That gives us a little bit of variety, and the Overlord isn't constantly picking the same monsters over and over and over again. To select our monsters, we take a D10, two D10s actually. We'll proclaim one of them to be the hundreds dice, and that'll be the black die, and one of them to be the tens die, and that'll be the blue die. And we're going to roll. For this particular adventure, we get 3 monster groups. I'm going to allow us to have some selection here. We can have something from the moon, the troll face, the ruined city, or the cave, it looks like. We'll start by picking something from the moon face. Here's our roll. Remember, black is the 100s. We got an 82. So from the moon, if we look for 82, we have to actually bring out the second sheet. We need to pull a shade, and I think we actually have those available from the first edition. Let me grab them and we'll pull them out. And we do have the shade. Here is a card for him, and I'm in the process of pulling out the shade from my resource box. I believe this is the shade, and I'll give you a good close-up of him if I can. That's obviously a master version of the shade. Here's a minion. And for these monsters, let's check to see how many we actually get to have. In this case, we get 3 minions and 1 master. And so I'll pull all 4 of those figures out and put them here. And we'll set this to the side. Let's go ahead and roll for our second monster group. Move you guys here for now. And this time we got a 43. We're picking on the troll-looking creature here. So let's see what a 43 gets us for the troll-like creature. And that's the fire imps, which we've seen before. I'm okay with that. Let's go with the thing we roll so we feel like we're following some sort of rules. The fire imps are quite good at dealing damage. So this will be a nice one for us to have. And here are the fire imps. Let me see if we can get a good close-up of these. The fire imps are really interesting. The artwork is quite nice. You can see there are multiple imps on a single figure. Possibly you can see that. And we get 4 of these figures as well. And let's flip this over and look to see what the fire imps look like. There's a picture. Notice they're combustible, at least the master fire imp is. That means that when he dies, he explodes. He's a flame fiend, which I can't really remember what that does. He ignores all effects of lava. It recovers health from it, actually. And they can cause burning or cause additional damage. The weaker minions get an additional range rather than causing an additional damage. So these will be good monsters to fight against. Let me show you the Shade as well before we roll our final creature. The Shade can fly, so he can move over enemy targets. He can also leech. If he succeeds, the hero suffers fatigue, and the monster is able to recover health when the hero suffers fatigue. Also, the Shades have Pierce. In this case, Pierce 2 for both the minion and the master. That's quite nice, and should be useful in defeating sorry heroes. Notice also that the Shade has a black defense die. That's the best defense die you can have in the game. The Fire Imps, meanwhile, have a gray one. That's an okay defense die, but not quite as good as what the Shade has. Both of these monsters have fairly weak attacks, with blue and yellow die rather than blue and red. For our last monster set, I want to give us a little bit more selection. You'll notice there are 4 icons listed at the top of this adventure. We will get to pick this time from either the cave or the ruins. So let's roll and see what we get. A 53. 53 for the cave and ruins will be over here. That means we can have a Medusa, which we do have access to. Or, with the cave, we could have an ice worm, which we also have access to. And we don't have any large monsters. So let's go with the ice worm. The ice worm was from the, I believe it's called the Temple of Ice. Was that the name of the adventure? Anyway, they're another type of dragon, and they're somewhat fearsome as well. And here's an image of the miniature for the ice worm. Note they have nice rows of teeth and a nice long tail. My particular monster has not been glued, so we can detach its head when Grisbin gets finished with it. And let's talk a little bit about this guy's power. The ice worm has the ability to attack targets up to 2 spaces away with reach. He can freeze monsters, making them suffer a fatigue if they get too close to him, and he can swallow them. The monster has to be defeated in order for the hero to be revived. That is an interesting mechanic. I have never played with this particular monster before. So we will give him a go and see how he does against the hero. Notice that he gets 2 gray defense die rather than just 1. And he has 9 hit points. Our final villain for this game is Baron Zakareth. Baron Zakareth is one of the lieutenants from the Overlord's armies. In the base game, you just get a token to represent Baron Zakareth, but I'm slightly crazy and went ahead and purchased the miniature. Baron Zakareth is one of the main characters in this set of quests. Notice he gets a black defense die, he has fairly decent health, good movement, a decent attack, which I think he is an adjacent attack. But he has a few powers as well. Baron Zakareth can use Dominion to make a hero become immobilized if he does not succeed in his skill check. He also has Pierce and an ability called Subdue. If this attack deals at least 1 damage, choose 1 condition. The target suffers the chosen condition. He has a variety to his attack that lets him hurt the heroes in various ways. He can make them poisoned, he can make them burning, most likely because he has some sorcerific powers. At least in my opinion. The Overlord himself has the basic deck that came with the original game, rather than Basic Deck 2, which comes with one of the later expansions. And he's chosen to go with the Magus development path. With the Magus development path, he can play this spell called Unholy Ritual, which he has 2 of, that allows him to draw additional cards. Note that this card has an errata on the FAQ for Descent, so check it out if you want to play the card. He can also play Rise Again to make one of his monsters that's been destroyed rise up and attack the heroes one more time. And we'll continue to get more cards for his deck as the game continues. He has all the normal cards that we know and love. Tripwire to stop the heroes from moving, Frenzy to attack an extra time with a monster, and on. And you'll get to see some of these cards played as we adventure through the Interlude. Note that in a previous adventure, the Overlord acquired the Staff of Shadows. This allows the Overlord to exhaust a card and discard an Overlord card to either draw another one or force a reroll of any one die. We can do this at any time, even if it's not our turn. So if the heroes roll particularly well against one of our monsters, we could theoretically prevent that from happening. The Overlord has not used this staff very effectively, but hasn't made much of a difference as he still managed to win 2 of the 3 encounters. Now that we've talked about the Overlord, let's focus our attention on the heroes. Leoric is our main wizard. He causes monsters within 3 spaces of himself to receive a -1 to all of their attack rolls. He also can explode himself on the monsters and cause quite a bit of damage. He doesn't have much health, but he does have a really good item that we won in one of the quests we were on, and that's the Arium Mail. That allows him to roll an additional black die in addition to his gray die for defense. So he doesn't take much damage from monsters anymore, despite having a low health. He's also a Rune Master, which Rune Masters use rune weapons to do damage. And he has a rune called Immolation that has piercing built in, along with some additional range and potential for additional damage. It also allows him to roll a blue and a red die. He can use a Fatigue to cause his rune to become explosive. He can also use his Rune Mastery to gain an additional surge on his attacks. He also has this ability called Runic Knowledge that allows him to spend a surge, to spend 1 fatigue to gain an additional +2 to an attack, which is nice. And finally, he has a Scorpion Helm, which gives him an additional range to all of his attacks. Moving on to Avric, he's our healer. He has the ability to allow the heroes near him to use a surge to recover 1 health on all attack rolls, and he has a heroic feat that allows him to heal each hero that is within range a certain number of hit points based on the roll of 2 red die. Avric has also acquired the Shield of the Dark God. He can exhaust this card after rolling defense to reroll some of his defense die, and he only keeps them if they're better than the previous roll. He can attack with his Iron Spear, which has reach, and also has pierce and an extra damage. And finally, most of his powers are focused on healing. Prayer of Healing is the default card for his class. He spends 1 fatigue to allow a hero to roll a red power die and gain that many hearts back. He also has Divine Fury. When he uses Prayer of Healing, a hero near him can gain 1 additional yellow power die to his attack pool on his next roll, which is really nice. And finally, Blessed Strike. If he deals damage, he allows himself and another hero to recover some hit points. So his focus is on helping others, and our final hero has a similar focus, but he does it in a much more manly fashion, I guess. This is Grisben. When he performs a rest action, he can discard a condition card on himself, so he never has to stay poisoned or whatever the condition is that's put upon him. And he gets an additional attack for his once per encounter using his heroic feat. For his class, we've selected the Champion. The Champion is a class that comes from the expansion set, and it has some unique abilities to it that I wanted to share with you. One of the most important parts for champions is the use of Valor, and I will show you a few Valor tokens now. Valor tokens are these little gray and red discs that have a horn on them, and Grisben is to use these Valor tokens when he uses some of his powers. He has an item that's a default item for his class called the Horn of Courage. He can exhaust it each turn to give any hero that's within 3 spaces of him 1 Valor. So he blows his horn, and my son always goes dur 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 to show that he's blowing the horn. He'll do that for you at some point soon. Grisbin is not a slouch when it comes to combat either. He has a halberd, which allows him to roll a red and a blue die. It has reach, and he can suffer a fatigue to re-roll 1 power die, just in case he misses. In addition, for a surge, he can do 2 additional damage, so that's a very, very nice weapon. Finally, for his powers. The power that is default to his class is the Valor of Heroes. Each time he defeats a monster, he gains 1 Valor. Any hero in the party who has a Valor may spend 1 Valor to add 1 damage to his attack results. Glory of Battle does something similar. Each time Grisbin defeats a monster, each other hero within 3 spaces can gain 1 Valor, and any hero can use those Valor points as shields. Finally, No Mercy. After the Overlord completes a monster's activation, a hero within 3 spaces of you, including yourself, may spend 2 Valor to exhaust this card and perform an attack. Exhausting means turning to the side like this. And Grisbin is a really tough fighter. That being said, we need some new armor for him. He's been getting destroyed a little bit by the Overlord's recent attacks. So let's discuss this adventure. I wanted to read the beginning of the adventure to you so you can get into the adventuring mood. And this part of the adventure stars 2 of our favorite characters, Baron Gregory and Baron Zachareth. And we'll see in this adventure the true side of Baron Zachareth. If we did not already know, he is going to turn out to be a henchman for the Overlord. Thanks to your efforts, we have slowed this foul Overlord's attacks, says Baron Gregory. And, puts in Baron Zachareth, we have determined what it is he seeks, the Shadow Rune. I have pooled my own resources with Baron Gregory, and together we determined the location of the Shadow Vault, where the rune is hidden. My soldiers will move to secure this location. I charge you, Gregory, with identifying and destroying the Overlord. Now, one of the issues with this is we know that Baron Zachareth is not necessarily a good guy. There's some more text to the adventure, but suffice it to say that we are entering into the Shadow Vault, and our goal is going to be to find the rune. And the rune is represented by a white token, which is near the center of the board, and you can see over here. There are 2 goals to this quest that are different depending on whether you're playing the Overlord or the hero. The Overlord is attempting to get the Shadow Key and move it off the board. If he does that, he wins the game. The heroes obviously want to prevent that, but in the meantime, the heroes also have to try to close 3 portals that are on the board. The portals allow the Overlord to draw new monsters to fight the heroes. As the portals are closed, certain monster groups will no longer be able to be summoned. So we will place the monster group soon, and we'll see what the heroes try to do.